Today we are going to take a look at Cyber Crash. This here is a small card game that will soon come out on Kickstarter. In this game you are trying to use cards to, well, kind of program your way out of the game. When you manage to hit the numbers that you are going to try to reach, well, you win the game. In this video I'm going to show you how to set up this game, but I'm also going to show you how to play it and what the cards means. So let's just take a look at this. Before we start to play, we should separate the debug cards and the crash cards from the rest of the deck. Then deal out one debug card to each player. We then need to shuffle the rest of the deck and deal out 7 cards to each player. So now we should have a total of 8. In a game with 6 players, you should insert 5 crash cards into the deck at random. But in a game with 2 to 5 players, you should only insert 4 crash cards at random in the deck, and then reshuffle the deck. Once the deck has been reshuffled with the crash cards, we put it face down in the center of the table for all players to easy reach. This now becomes the draw pile. Next we need to set up the die. Let's start with the target number. First we need to roll 1 die. This number here will become the 10. Then we roll the other number and this one will become the ones. In this case here we got 20, which is actually not enough to become the target number, as it needs to be at least 31. So in this case here we would need to re-roll until we get more than 31. But we also need to set up another set of die. These here represents the accumulator, and they should start at 0, 0. Cyber Crash is a card game for 2 to 6 players, where you draw cards from the main deck, meaning the draw deck in the center of the table. You draw the cards up on your hands. During your turn you will play cards from your hand as well, and then you will execute whatever instructions the card says. But during your turn you can also play an operation card. Now, before we take a look at how the game actually is played, let's take a look at the different cards. So these here are the 3 types of cards. We have the crash cards, we have the instruction cards, and then we have the debug cards. The crash cards are the ones that we put into the game at random, and how many depended on how many players, remember? Now, when you draw this, you will lose the game, unless you can play a debug card. Crash cards are red, and they say crash at the top of the card. The instruction cards are cards that you can play during your turn, and they will of course have different instructions on them. These will let you do things to the other players, but also let you manipulate the deck so you do not draw a crash card. The instruction cards has a yellow title. Now when you play a debug card, it is to avoid the crashing card. If you do this, you simply put the crash card back anywhere into the draw deck, meaning the main deck, and you put it in without looking. But if you cannot play a debug card when you draw a crash card, well, you lose, and then you must remove all your cards and your crash cards from the game. Besides those cards, we also have data cards with numbers on, but I will tell you more about these in a bit. So what's the objective of the game? Well, the objective is for the players to try to modify the accumulator dice so the numbers matches the target numbers. Remember at the start we rolled the green die and then we got 20. So now it's our job to use our cards that we have on our hands to modify the accumulator dice so they will match that number. The player that first managed to match up this number with the target number wins the game. But how do we do that? Well, during your turn you can play an instruction card and an operation cards, and on these cards there will be modifiers. It can be add, divide or subtract, and you will use these plus a number card to modify your accumulator. Let me show you how. So you could, for example, choose to play the operation card add and then a number directly after. This here would add 7 to the accumulator. But you can also play several operation cards and number cards together. For example, if you would like to multiply the accumulator by 5, but you don't have a 5 card on your hand, but you do have a 3 and a 2, you can choose to add operation. Here you may use the add card to add the 2 and 3 together, creating a 5. Meaning that now you actually will multiply the accumulator with 5 instead of just 3 or 2. Once you have played your cards, you put them in the discard pile face up. Some of these cards will actually be split up into 2. Here you can choose if you want to use it as an operation card or as a data card. So once you have played your cards, you put them in the discard pile. And then you would of course also modify the die. If you have played any cards that modify the die. The die can never go below 0. It will simply become 0, and it can never become above 99. If you did not play a card that modified the die, well then you would execute any of the instructions that are said on the cards. And like I said before, this can be quite a bit different depending on which card you play. You could modify the other player's card, you could take cards from the other players, you could modify the deck, and so on. There's quite a lot to do here. Whenever you use divide in this game, you always round down. Plus, if you ever divide with 0, you lose the game. If you draw the crash card and you cannot play a debug card, you lose the game. But if you manage to match the numbers on the target die with the accumulation dice, well, you win the game. And that was Cyber Crash. This game is quite neat. I mean, this is a small, easy to learn card game that you could bring anywhere. And you can get people to understand this game like that. But to actually master it, to actually beat the game, it's not that easy. Plus, to be able to get these accumulators to actually match the target die, well, it's not that easy. It takes a lot of planning and it takes a lot of practice. This game, as I said, will be out on Kickstarter quite soon. If you want to know more, well, check out the links down in the description. If you like my video, hit thumbs up, give me a comment, or why not subscribe to the channel. But most importantly, my friend, please keep on remembering to spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace out.